And welcome back. Welcome to Opinion Court. You can get in touch with us 22422. That's our SMS line. And if you're online, please use the hashtag Opinion Court, whether you're on Facebook or Twitter. We would love to track your conversation. I will introduce my guests to you first. To my far right is Edward Kisiang'ani. He is our resident political analyst. Next to me is Dr. Njoki Ngumi with the Nest Collective, which is a film, visual arts, music and fashion company, and she's also with the Hiva Fund. To my left is Patrick Gathara, a cartoonist and columnist, and next to him is Ezekiel Mutua, the CEO of the Kenya Film Classification Board. You're all welcome to the program. Now, if you have a mobile phone and you're using it to film anything, a wedding, a soccer match that you intend to share with other online users, or if you're using WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, you want to sell goods, then you are part of a larger group of broadcasters, including media houses like this one, that is likely to be affected by the proposed law by the Kenya Film Classification Board. And so tonight on Opinion Court, we are taking a look at the Films, Stage Plays and Publications Bill of 2016 and how it affects players in the industry who apparently include you at home. So Ezekiel, let me start with you. You are the chief architect, the author of this proposed piece of legislation. What informed it?
There are three things. First of all, the current law that establishes the Kenya Film Classification Board is a 1963 Act. It has been amended severally, the last time in 2012. But ideally, it's an archaic law. It's a law. It was not removed by the new constitution. It was not removed by the Presidential Task Force on Parastatal Reforms. It has endured the test of time, but it requires to be amended because it's a 1963 law. Two, the developments in technology have necessitated new regulatory approach to distribution of content online and the exposure of children to harmful content through the phones and all these gadgets. And then number three, with time, Kenya Film Classification Board has been given mandates that are scattered in other legislations. For example, Kenya Information and Communications Act 46I talks about the Kenya Film Classification Board and the role of rating content. Then the Programming Code for Free-to-Air Radio and TV that came to force in July this year, again donates all the powers of regulating or rating and the classifying content. We wanted to collapse all those other powers donated in other legislations under Cap 222, but basically is to address the new technological advancement that bring regulatory challenges and ensure that we are up to speed with regulation to safeguard our moral values.
All right. Dr. Ngumi, what are your first impressions about the bill and what are your objections to it?
I mean, my objections are known and they're on record. This is not the first time I've sat opposite Daktari and made them known. My primary objection is that this law is legislating technological advancements, but its effects are going to be felt on people. So we can say that we're interested in saying, oh, WhatsApp is ruining our children, etc., etc. But all these inert entities don't have power unless people give them power. WhatsApp only has power for as long as people are sending messages using it, and it's people who are composing those messages. So we need to understand people before we come and start legislating them. The second thing I wanted to talk about was with regard to protecting children. There's so much legislature in this country that protects children already. We have the Penal Code, we have the Sexual Offences Act, we have the Children's Act, the Constitution recognizes the place of Kenyan children. So really, I think, and I have said this before, especially to Daktari, that he's really out of his lane when it comes to taking on the entire mandate of protecting the children of Kenya. The parents of Kenya will protect the children of Kenya. The people of Kenya will protect the children of Kenya. That's my opinion. All right. Yours, Patrick?
Well, I think I've got like three objections to it. First, I think it donates rather wide and very vague powers to KFCB. As you noted at your introduction, anybody filming, with a phone then becomes a subject of this law, which I don't think is why KFCB was set up. The second thing, I think KFCB has a tendency to use the language of protecting children to actually monitor and regulate adults. So that they speak that we are doing this to protect children. And one thing you have to notice is they don't define these values that they say they want to safeguard. They keep talking of national values, but where are they? What are they? These are not things that are
arguably enshrined in the Constitution.
Where in the Constitution? Where is it? If you look at Article 10 that discusses national values, has very little to do with morals, and stuff like that.
With sexuality?
Right. My third objection, I think this is sort of a backdoor way of legalizing the illegalities that KFCB is already currently engaged in. If you look at the changes, they're trying to sort of put a veneer of legality on things that they are actually doing today.
That are illegal, such as?
So, for example, they claim that they can regulate broadcasting, they can regulate media, they can regulate advertising under CAP 222. Yet CAP 222 has already been interpreted by courts to say that they don't have that power. The courts have already interpreted it, in fact, to say, if you remember the court case in 2007, specifically the minister had issued a notice to the media, to media houses, to say that they needed to get authorizations and permissions from the KFCB, and the court interpreted that to say that that use of the KFCB to regulate media, and specifically it spoke of broadcasting, it spoke of advertising, was not just unconstitutional, but that it was not proper in a democracy. That hasn't changed.
That comment is good, but really is not valid, because it says CAP 222. In my introduction, I said part of the objectives was to align mandates donated to KFCB in other legislations. This is not our document. You are aware this document was published by the CA. It took 6 months for the industry to engage, and it came to force on 1st of July. It says that Kenya Film Classification Board shall rate all the content. That may not be in CAP 222, but it is here under the programming code, Schedule 3, or Section 3, and it speaks even about the scope. And the scope says the programs, let me give the scope, and Section 3, it says that classification guidelines as prescribed by the Kenya Film Classification Board apply to all programs and non-program matter, namely commercials, infomercials, documentaries, program promotions, program listings, community service announcement, and so on. And that's why I was saying part of our objective is to align, to bring these things under CAP 222, so that when Patrick reads or any other Kenyan, they see the role of KFCB. You don't have to look for other laws to know what KFCB is.
Arguably, it has been seen that you're actually usurping the roles of other authorities who are already doing this regulation.
But I was saying,
to the extent that the Communications Authority is already regulating broadcast houses, you have the Competition Authority that is dealing with advertising, etc. So that there's
can I answer
diversity.
That?
Yes, please.
There is only one government agency in this country that is mandated, has the expertise, and is allowed and permitted and empowered by the law to rate and classify content. Kenya Film Classification Board. And this is not our document. The Communications Authority lack the capacity and the expertise, and that's why we are here.
Okay, Dr. Ngumi. The thing I wanted to say is that while this may be true of the programming code, and I have a couple of things to say about the programming code later, the draft bill goes very far outside the mandate of the programming code. It goes into the mandate of the Kenyans who are taking their images of their weddings and so forth. It goes into what Gathara is growing. It goes into so many different places that are not just the programming code. So I always feel as though whenever Daktari is bringing out the programming code and saying this is what we are following, but the things that he's suggesting in the draft bill are completely different and completely much wider than the scope of the programming code. And that is the thing that is worrying Kenyans, not the programming code, not the existence of the programming code, which by the way only works for free-to-air media, but the generalized wider scope of the draft bill.
And we'll get into the details of step-by-step where it seems you have jumped to the gun. But Prof, I haven't heard from you yet, your general views.
While you are talking, I was thinking about Ezekiel Mutua. I was actually thinking about you. Why are you doing these things?
Which things?
The things you are doing. Do you know how many Kenyans are annoyed with you?
Well, Professor, that's a wild statement.
Very many people, I can tell you, including my students, they are very annoyed with you. So the reason why I'm saying this is this.
I thought you were with me. This is a funny panel then.
No.
Because I asked Anne.
It's not about
Let me finish it.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about several.
So
yes, but the reason why I'm saying this. You don't
it's embarrassing when you start saying who is annoyed with me. How do you measure that?
I have measured.
How?
I have done.
This is interesting because then the question becomes, how do you measure public morality?
Yes.
No, let's discuss the content.
Wait.
Let's discuss the content. You can't start that.
I'm sure he's getting to his point.
This is a professor.
I'm
He's
sure
a role model.
I'm sure he's getting to his point.
Don't lose your head. But the reason why you should have waited for me to say what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
You know, all through your discussion, you have not talked about the supreme law of the land, the Constitution. That's why I say people are annoyed with you. You are talking about the Communication Authority of Kenya, which is flawed. Even the legislation on the Communication Authority is flawed, and a lot of people have raised the eyebrows. We need to change those laws, but we can't change the Constitution. So the starting point, even if you are serving the executive, my brother, don't make unprovoked smiles at the executive just because you want to look like you are relevant. When you look at our Constitution, Article 2 of the Constitution, Item 2, it says that you cannot be acting in the name of the state to do a law which is unconstitutional. Article 3 says you must be, as an individual, even when you are not a big person at the Kenya Film Corporation, you must protect the Constitution. Then when you go to the Bill of Rights at Chapter 4, in fact, you are making an intrusion on private space under Article 31. You have completely violated the media freedoms under Article 36. Now, that's where I ask, you have talked about 1963. You are bringing back some legislation which is consistent with the Public Preservation of Public Security Act, which was first passed in the colonial government in 1960 and then amended in 1964, and it is that one that took Ngugi wa Thiong'o to detention. It's the one that detained Matiba. It is the one that detained many other people that you know, William Mutunga and so on. So why are you doing this? That's why I'm asking you.
Don't lose your cool. Can I answer
you? Because I want to just conclude something before you come on.
Yes.
The first thing that should guide you even in your position is to check out and say, even if the executive is interested in this, because I think very soon you will start, when something happens that doesn't impress the executive, you will disconnect us from Twitter the way Museveni has done it. You are likely to do that. But the first thing to do, even if you are advising the executive, is to say this, that Mr. Executive, what you are telling me is unconstitutional. You cannot obey unconstitutional directives. You only say, start with the Constitution. Am I violating anything in the Constitution? If you know that you are violating, you would rather resign from your job than continue violating the Constitution and purport to legislate over morality.
Okay, Prof, let's allow him to respond. Let's allow him to respond.
First of all, I found those utterances totally unfortunate.
They are not utterances.
But they have been meant. Because this is a discussion that is based on issues.
Constitution is an issue.
Yeah, let me come there.
Yes.
If you believe in that Constitution,
yes,
Prof, you should not be worried. And as a professor, you should be the first one to know that not Mutua, not even the President of Kenya, not Parliament can make a law that undermines the Constitution.
Many of them do.
Oh, they do.
They do.
They declare that
you don't live in Kenya. You don't live in Kenya, my brother.
Let me answer.
Yes, you don't live here.
I live here, Chief. Please behave. You're a professor.
If you would,
you're an embarrassment on a panel like this.
I feel.
Let's discuss issues.
Let's allow him to make his point. What is your point?
My point is there can be no law made by Ezekiel or by anyone in this country that undermines the Constitution. That's my understanding. I'm entitled to it. Number two, what we have given are proposals. This is the first initial step. We are yet to go to discuss them. In fact, we had a very good meeting today with the Creative Economic Council. And I can tell you there's very good progress. And tomorrow we are doing a press conference together on this process. let us not split hairs today, because tomorrow we are having a press conference. We are going to address these issues and the process. We are at the beginning. These are just proposals, and it's unfortunate that we
They are proposals, but they are disturbing proposals because they are reminiscent of a Gazette Notice 4041 that already was taken to court by broadcasters, I believe the Nation Media Group specifically, and was ruled to be unconstitutional, and it seems just to be a reintroduction of the same. So first, by saying that you would never put a law to Kenyans that was unconstitutional has already been judged contrary.
That is the difference between me and you. I am talking about what I know. Probably you are in your own comfort, you know, you don't read the Constitution or you don't read court.
I come with it. I don't see you with the Constitution.
I know it. Yeah. I've quoted it without reading. You can read.
I just want to respond to what he had said before about the programming code, and I think he's a bit disingenuous. The KFCB, since the beginning of the year, has been claiming that it can regulate media, and this was before the programming code came into force. You know, so he can't now say that this is what he's basing it on. You know,
he knew something that we didn't know.
Already he was. I mean, he was already claiming. And
you know,
if I may,
this is an attack on the Constitution.
And if I may, my second point is the Communications Authority cannot donate power to KFCB that is outside the mandate of the KFCB. The mandate of the KFCB is defined in the law that set it up. It's only Parliament that can add power to, not not another authority. You know, and that's my point. So I think what he's trying to do, to go back to my initial point, is to try and retroactively legalize the illegal things that he and his board are already doing. You know, if you look at what you just said about the 2007 judgment, you know, they cited the preamble to Cap 222, you know, and they say this is why it was set up. You know, and it was not to regulate media. It is not to stop parties. It is not to regulate the names that you can, what you can call yourself, or musicians can. It was to regulate plays. It was to regulate.
Or to eavesdrop on weddings.
Let me move the conversation forward. Hold just one thought. Let's get Doctor, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something about one of KFCB's favorite topics when they're tweeting, which is positive messaging. And I think as Kenyans we need to really move past this idea that positive messaging is what is going to take us forward. If it was positive messaging that was going to take us forward, then we would outlaw the Bible and the Quran. There's some things there that are not very positive. If we made our entire lives child friendly, you know what I mean? When would our children know about death? When would our children understand that bad things happen in the world and that you have to fight evil and win?
But you must, Dr. certainly agree that there is need to protect. I mean, a lot of parents are worried about the kind of information that their children are able to access without their input. So how would you propose, contrary to what Mutua is putting forward, to regulate or to protect rather children online, whether it's through WhatsApp, Facebook, etc.?
The first thing we need to have is an honest conversation about the fact that the things we think our children are not exposed to, they already know. And so they've already gotten some knowledge about some of these things from people who are not us, from some place, from some people who may not have presented this knowledge to us in the way that we would have presented it to them if we were going to present it to them at all. Because another thing that I saw in some of KFCB's material was that parents are apparently traumatized at the idea of having to talk to their children about sex, which again is ridiculous. Who would put any ignorant human being in a car and throw them into a highway with no lessons, no learning, no instruction whatsoever? And this is what we're doing with our children.
So how do you protect
in this
children
country with regard to sex?
In an online generation where on WhatsApp you can basically access pornography at any age, or on Instagram, etc.
Here's the thing we need to understand about children. Even if we regulate our children 3 hours and 59 minutes out of the day, that 1 minute when we're not regulating them is the 1 minute when all hell will break loose if we are not having conversations with them. If we're not talking to our children, if we're not trying to understand the places they're coming from, if we're not trying to make the environment an enabling one for them to be able to ask honest questions and to hear honest feedback, then we've already failed.
I think, and even when you talk about that protection, nobody's talking about adults adults already know these things.
Exactly.
Whoever protected them.
Yes.
And they are parents, they are fathers. So you are talking about children as if these children are cut off from the life of adults. And so they will grow into a different generation that is separated from adults.
Or from reality.
This is the society in which we are living, and maybe we should talk about this. In fact, in terms of pornography, why
I'm
don't
not sure I understand your point,
yes.
Prof. Are you saying that because inevitably this is what happens to the world, just let your kids access it without having any sort of safeguards or restrictions? You're a parent.
What she's saying is that we need a genuine conversation on this matter.
But what are you saying?
Because what I'm saying is this. You are assuming that at a certain age, when children are exposed to certain things, they will be totally spoiled. And then you think that at a particular age, they will be responsible to handle that. Who determines that?
Maybe
and I think on that,
yes,
we should be careful when the state starts pretending that it can act as a parent. You know, it is not the job of the state. What we should actually be doing is empowering parents to make these decisions. They are the ones who should be deciding what can my kid watch, what can't my kid watch.
Yes.
It's not up to the state. The state itself is such an unwieldy organism that, and it is so dangerous to simply give it unfettered powers in the way that Ezekiel Mutua is seeking it. You know, because tomorrow, I mean, he's already said himself that he can regulate the content of political shows. Now think about that.
He will,
you know, what stops them tomorrow deciding, well, actually, if you say Kenyatta is corrupt, that we will not allow. What's to stop him? You know, because it is all unfettered. It's all described vaguely, you know. And
do you believe that the language is vague and that your powers are broad to the extent that you give yourself actually a mini police force that will be standing around, you know, paying attention to what one is filming and has, you know, the power to stop it at will?
Compliance.
I actually don't know what we are discussing and the value of this program. I think for me it's a waste of my evening with my family, because you asked me that we come and discuss this document.
Is that
we are not veering off into all manner of
how
assumptions.
Is it veering off?
I'm disappointed. Let me tell you.
How have we veered off? What I've talked about right now about a police force is actually in this proposed legislation, correct?
Why don't we agree? These are proposals. There's going to be an opportunity to argue them out, to go into the nitty-gritties. We are only discussing
this
proposals.
Is public participation.
No. This
you are accountable for the
law.
proposals you make.
Not on TV.
Yes, on TV you are accountable to us.
I'm accountable on guiding the process. I don't make them Gathara. I am an employee of the Kenya Film Classification Board.
You authored these proposals.
You admitted.
Come on, you said it yourself.
Let me make his point. Let him make his point.
Please understand how government works and how laws operate. And Gathara and the Prof, if you are believers in the Constitution, you don't need to fear. One of the things I've been asking is, if what we are doing is unconstitutional, why have you not gone to court to stop KFCB?
We shall do it soon. Actually, we shall.
Because, let me tell you, allow me to finish, most of the very serious regulatory decisions world over have been determined and interpreted at the court of law. The Communications Authority, if they were to give you the cases they have on all manner of issues, there are so many. Any regulatory body all over the world. In fact, I feel disappointed that we don't have a case in court.
Actually, you have been taken to court. The court has ruled.
It ruled on 4041 on the Gazette
in 2007. You got a ruling that says that you cannot use a KFCB to regulate media. You cannot use a KFCB to regulate advertising. This the court declared.
Patrick, let me respond to that. That was 2007.
Times have changed.
No, actually, that time we were operating under the Ministry of Information. In 2009, there were amendments to the overall law, that was Kenya Information and Communications Act. 2010, we got the new constitution. 2012, this thing was amended. 2013, the Presidential Task Force on Parastatal Reform. A lot of what has gone under the bridge. What we should discuss, because I think statements like the ones Professor is making.
I mean, the idea that court judgments made in 2007 are no longer valid.
I'm not saying they are no longer valid. I'm just saying a lot of things have happened since.
Okay, let me let's allow Dr.
Let me say something about
the situation should be better in 2016 now that we have a new constitution.
Because Daktari, you've invited us to understand how the government works, and as Kenyans we understand how the government works, how it can be saying one thing on this side and another thing on this side. I'm going to read something from the speech that His Excellency the President made during the opening of the Kenya Cultural Center, and he said, "Theatre gives society a chance to examine, teach, admire, understand, laugh at itself, teach itself, and move forward to a higher, better socio-political and moral plane." Now, your legislation continues to treat creators of cultural content as though they are criminals already before anything they have done is even proved by the fact that you need to see everything that they need to do even before they have done it. You want to be the one to be over their shoulders, trying to understand what they are doing and why, and to be the one to tell Kenyans whether their content is objectionable or not. And this is the problem. If on one side the president is saying that he's encouraging the creation of cultural content to move this country forward to a higher, better socio-political and moral plane, and you come from the other side also with morals, but with colonialist.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we are not contradicting that statement. First of all, these are proposals. And the moment we go to
if we do not discuss proposals, they will become law.
Yeah, we are inviting you now.
And we need to understand
we are inviting you now from tomorrow. That we discuss.
Not in conference hall. So we are a street operator.
We want to discuss them here.
No, we are actually. Kenyans
are street operators.
No, Kenyans are watching. We may not even come to your conference tables.
All right. We are running out of time, but I'm going to open this up for a final round of comments. Ezekiel, let me begin with you. To the extent that you have said these, of course, are still proposals. There is still time to discuss the content and to welcome stakeholders. Shows like these are stakeholders in that process. So please do not object, since you agreed to come on the program in the first place. How can people participate and air their views on the bill, on the bill, and what are the next steps after public participation?
First of all, we are not operating in a vacuum. There is CAP 222. Today we agreed that this will become the reference point for the process of amending the law, and that we are going to engage with the stakeholders. They are going to be identified by the industry itself. They proposed names today. Tomorrow we are going to announce who are the registered bodies that we want to engage, because when you get into public participation in the lawmaking, then there must be a structured way of discussing. So that is going to happen. I want the industry.
And that was an agreement between yourselves and
the Creative Economy Center, the Creative Economic Council, and then Dr. Ngumi is aware about this, because she has been part of some of those proposals, and the endeavor to ensure that there is an overarching body that guides and speaks to bring coherence into the utterances or the proposals from the industry. We provided a platform time and time again. We went to the National Museum. We provided a platform for people to ventilate on these proposals. There are others by the industry and by the other stakeholders. We are going to engage in a sober way. Throwing stones and shouting at each other does not make the law. Acrimony does not contribute to building the industry. Ultimately, what will build the industry is us getting together and discussing these proposals.
And so tomorrow you'll be announcing how...
We're announcing the way forward, or in terms of how we are going to engage. And I believe, ultimately, the industry should not worry. Nobody should panic. Dr. Ngumi, I stand by that statement. And we are going to see... let me tell you, today we had a very good meeting. And the same team that was shooting at the National Museum was very good team today. And I think that's the way we should go.
Were they a bad team the other day?
No. One time we meet and we say we can't speak to each other. Today we came up with a way forward. I wish we can respect that and allow for the statement tomorrow. Then we see how that pans out.
All right, and we'll definitely look forward to that statement. Dr. Ngumi, your final comment.
Yeah, I have three actually. First of all, Daktari, I really don't approve of the way in which you are rating people's behavior, even though you said that people were shouting and now they were good. This is not a school. We are adults, and we can have disagreements like adults, even though those include sometimes raised voices, because people are angry and upset. You cannot rate emotion. Your work is to rate film. The second thing I wanted to say was, I guess, to Kenyans, that it's even the watershed period is not going to protect your children. Life is not lived in a watershed period. Newspapers are not read in a watershed period. Are we going to have a watershed newspaper that can only be read between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m.? And so the thing that is going to protect us consistently, people protect people, not laws. It's not laws that protect people. It's not Kenya Film Classification Board that protects people. It is people who protect people. So we need to have honest conversations about where we are, about where we want to be, about the places in which our values have changed and the places in which we want our values to go. We have also seen, and let me be very frank and very honest, we have seen what it looks like when you say something publicly, Dr. Mutua, and then you go back on your word. So for me, the thing I am waiting for is for you to honor your word finally. Like honor it. Actually honor it. When you say that there is going to be progress, when you say that there is going to be consensus, when you say no, when you say that all views are going to be taken into account, you cannot come onto this show and say that this show is useless and then call professor, tell professor that he's behaving badly. His views matter. So you're going to listen?
I think you're beginning to behave badly yourself.
Tell me that again. Tell me that again publicly, where my mother can hear you.
Yeah. Let's speak to the document.
Oh my, let's get to Prof. Let's get to Prof. Bad-mannered Prof.
Dr. Mutua, maybe you are used to an audience which you like patronizing.
Oh, who agrees?
And you know that the audience is useless to you. We are the most useful people to you.
Absolutely.
Yes, because we are telling you what you don't like hearing in your place. But the point is that I think you cannot invite me to a proposal that you want to kill somebody and then you want us to discuss that.
I'm not going to invite you.
Yeah, of course, that's what I'm saying. I don't think I qualify according to you. I already have seen very many people will not qualify to attend your place, your meeting. But what I'm saying is that generally it's good that you are thinking that these are proposals. That is a very positive thing. But the tone of the proposal is that you are trying to attack our constitution, and therefore my suggestion to you is this: don't try to upset the republic by killing the spirit that carries the republic, which is this constitution. Don't even try to quote laws which have been made in parliament, when in fact there is a conflict like what people are saying. You go back to the constitution. That is the supreme law. These other laws can be changed by even the next government, but the constitution can be changed. So I want you to have that fidelity for this constitution. You don't, and probably you need to graduate from the Jomo Kenyatta / Moi era and come back to this post-2010 dispensation which Kenya is enjoying right now. We don't need you. The government, the republic cannot pay you to propose things that destroy the republic. Thank you.
I'll make 2 or 3 quick points. First, I think when Dr. Mutua speaks about goodwill, I think there's severe lack of goodwill from the KFCB. The proposals taken at face value do not represent goodwill to me. Secondly, we've got to recognize that the KFCB is already engaged in illegalities and not run away from that. You know,
so do you want to go to court and stop it?
It's already been declared. You know, it is there in black and white. You know, whether you like it or not, I'm sorry. You know, but that is it. And I think the third thing is how we view regulation. And I think there's a tendency to think of regulation as stopping things as opposed to enabling things. And I think it would really be helpful for the KFCB and the government in general to start thinking that it is not there to police Kenyans. It is there to enable them, to help them to enjoy their freedoms, you know, not to curtail them. You know, and I think there is a lot in regulators in how they perceive their duties. They think it is to lock us up, is to put us in a box that they are defined and they are comfortable with. You know, so I just end on that, and I just make one last note on something that he likes saying. To do with homosexuality, and he keeps saying that it is illegal. It is no, Bwana Mutua, it is not illegal to be a homosexual in Kenya. It is not illegal to celebrate your love as a homosexual in Kenya.
Not what we are discussing.
Well, I'm telling you, because your own organization has gone to try and stop videos or parties saying, oh, it's lesbians who are there, it is homosexuals who are shooting this, you know, and it is not illegal. You know, so please,
let's wind it up with this. Prof initially asked, why are you doing this? There is a school of thought that believes that you're doing this simply to gain visibility because you intend to make a political bid in March next year. Is that correct? Are you going to be vying for a Senate seat in Ukambani?
That is
and the panelists. I think Kenyans have for far too long been treated to mediocrity in government service, that you think any hard-working Kenyan must be aspiring for some political seat.
I'm just asking, are you or
Let me
aren't
disabuse you of that notion. I'm so happy serving Kenyans as the CEO of the Kenya Film Classification Board, and have no intentions of running, not in 2017. I could run in the future, but I'm doing this because there's a law that guides me, right now. People who are going to run for political offices will have to resign by February, so let's discuss this in March. And then I'll confirm my word.
If you're still CEO.
Whoa.
Correct?
You wish I wouldn't
no, I'm saying if you're going to resign. You talked about the deadline.
He says it's hard working.
I have no intentions of running
in 2017.
And I'm not doing this for political. And I'm saddened that on a national TV, we perpetuate the myth that any hard-working Kenyan or somebody doing something in the public service.
We don't necessarily admit that, but we do ask questions.
We are the ones to judge whether you are hardworking or not.
Thank you all. Thank you all for your views.
All of us are hardworking.
We're out of time. Yes, we're all hardworking. Oh, wow. Don't you love opinion? We'll be back after this. Stay with us. Thank you.